America's The Truth About Chloe and the 10 Ghosts. Asterisk. I'd seen photos of the Myrtles Plantation before, golden light spilling through lace curtains, white columns framed by oaks draped in Spanish moss, the kind of place travel bloggers called charming and full of history. But, standing there in person, suitcase in hand, I felt something different. The air was heavier here, not just humid, like Louisiana in early fall, but thick, weighted, as if every inch of the place had soaked in the years and held on to them. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked toward the veranda. The house loomed above me, its shutters dark and uneven, like a face watching without expression. I told myself it was just a house, just wood and nails. But the longer I looked at it, the more it felt like the house was looking back. Inside, the air was cooler, perfumed faintly with old wood and something else, a sweetness that reminded me of flowers left too long in water. A woman at the front desk greeted me with the warm professionalism of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Her badge read Mary. "You're here for the night tour?" she asked. I nodded, signing the register. Her eyes lingered a moment too, long on my name. Then she looked up. "Room 7, she said, sliding a key toward me. "Upstairs, last on the right. That's one of our historic rooms." The pause before historic was so slight most people wouldn't notice. The staircase creaked under my weight. The walls were lined with paintings, old portraits in tarnished frames. One in particular stopped me halfway up. A young woman, green turban wrapped around her hair, eyes fixed straight. Ahead, the placard beneath read only Chloe. The air shifted. Somewhere above me, a floorboard creaked, slow, deliberate, as though someone else was walking the hallway just ahead. But when I reached the landing, the corridor was empty. Room 7 was just as the photos online had promised. Antique furniture, lace curtains, and a bed that looked like it belonged in another century. I'd set my bag down. That's when I saw it on the dresser. A single, white flower in a vase of cloudy water. Its petals had browned at the edges, and next to it, on the lace runner, a faint, wet ring, as if the vase had been moved not long ago. From the corner of the room, in the reflection of the old mirror, I thought I saw something, a flicker of green dot like the edge of a turban. But when I turned, there was nothing there. The floorboards in room 7 had their own language, even when I wasn't moving. They groaned softly, like the weight of years still pressed down on them. The air had that old house stillness, but it wasn't silent. Every few minutes, something whispered at the edge of hearing, not words, but shifts. The faint sound of fabric, a soft click, like porcelain brushing porcelain. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old houses did that. I left the light on as I unpacked. But as dusk deepened outside, the shadows in the corners of the room felt heavier. When I walked past the mirror on the dresser, I didn't look directly at it, at least, not for long. The glass had that slight wave to it, like mirrors made before the modern age. It distorted things, made straight lines bend, and sometimes, when I glanced at it from the corner of my eye, I thought the distortion was moving. The hallway outside my room creaked again. Slow, steady steps, not hurried, not random pacing. I opened my door quietly, peering out. The corridor was dim, lit only by a single lamp at the far end. The air smelled faintly of something sweet again, like that overripe flower in my room. And at the far end of the hallway, just before the light bled into shadow, a figure. It stood facing the wall, unmoving. Shoulders narrow, head wrapped in something green. I blinked. The hall was empty, back in my room. I locked the door, though I noticed the lock was old, the kind that could turn from either side. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening. The pacing had stopped, but a new sound replaced it, a faint, almost imperceptible humming. High, thin, like someone trying not to be heard. It came from the hallway. Then the humming stopped, and the floorboard directly outside my door creaked. I held still, Listening, the handle of my door rattled, just slightly, once, twice, and then silence. The flower on the dresser had wilted noticeably in the hours since I'd arrived. One petal lay on the lace runner, its tip stained dark, and in the mirror, behind my own reflection, for the briefest moment, I saw her, a woman in a green turban, standing just over my shoulder. The mirror was empty, but the air in room 7 had changed. It wasn't colder in the way ghost stories describe. No sudden icy wind, no chill crawling along the skin. It was heavier. Every breath felt slower, like the air itself had thickened. The humming started again. This time it was in the room, faint, almost gentle, a tune without melody. Circling over the same few notes again and again, I turned slowly. The space beside the dresser was empty, but the mirror was not in the glass, behind my reflection. The edge of the green turban swayed faintly, as if moved by a breeze that wasn't there. My chest tightened. I stepped closer to the mirror, every instinct screaming not to, but I couldn't look away. The green cloth shifted. Again, and this time, a shape emerged. Not her face, not yet, just a shoulder, and the hint of a pale hand. Resting on it, the humming stopped, and a voice slid softly into the room. Low, measured, almost conversational. "You shouldn't have come here." The sound wasn't coming from the mirror. It was coming from the space between the mirror and me. I stepped back quickly, my heel hitting the side of the bed. The flower on the dresser trembled, a single drop of water sliding down its stem, as if the vase had just been moved. The voice came again. "They don't tell you the truth about this place." The floor creaked behind me. I turned sharply. No one. But when I looked back at the dresser, the mirror was different. Chloe was there now, full figure, standing at the far end of the hallway, reflected in the glass, a place I knew was empty. Her eyes in the reflection were fixed on mine. The room felt smaller. The shadows along the walls stretched higher, darker, until the corners of the ceiling seemed to bend inward. Chloe took one slow step forward in the mirror. The hallway behind her darkened completely. The lock on my door clicked. Not open, not closed, just shifted, as though someone had touched it from the other side. Chloe's voice was almost a whisper now. "They think I'm the only one here." Her eyes flicked, not at me, but at the darkened hallway in the mirror. And for the first time, I realized there were shapes in that dark dot, tall, still dot, watching. The figures in the mirror didn't move. At first, I told myself they were just shadows, shapes cast by the frame, the curtains, the way the light bent. But then one of them leaned forward, just slightly, enough that the green turban in the foreground seemed to shift away from it, like Chloe herself didn't want them closer. Her voice came again, lower now, and sharper. "You shouldn't see them." The shadows in the mirror were taller than her, featureless, but solid in a way shadows shouldn't be. I counted 3, no, 4, standing shoulder to shoulder, just inside the hall that in reality was still empty. The lock on my door clicked. Again, a faint scrape of metal, and then a new sound, not humming, not pacing, breathing, slow, wet, as though it came through lungs, long unused. It wasn't coming from the mirror. It was coming from the hallway. Chloe's figure shifted in the glass. Her voice cut through the heavy air. "They aren't mine. They never were." Her head tilted slightly toward the shadows, as if to keep them in sight. "They're part of the house. Always were." One of the taller shapes stepped forward in the reflection. It didn't walk. It slid. The edges of its form seemed to smudge, bleeding into the darkness around it. A cold draft brushed the back of my neck. I turned instinctively, but the hallway was still empty, except the lamp at the far end of the hall flickered once, twice, then went dark. When I looked back at the mirror, the shadows had moved closer to Chloe. They loomed over her now. Her green turban shifted again, but her face stayed fixed on mine. "You're in the wrong room." The lock on my door turned one final time. This time, it opened just enough for the hall's dark to press inside. The breathing was closer now, right? Outside the threshold. The figures in the mirror stepped forward again, and with each movement, the edges of room 7 seemed to blur, like the house itself was pulling in around me. And then Chloe spoke again. This time, with something like urgency. If you want to leave, you don't look at them. Her eyes locked on mine. You don't look at them. The door eased inward, slow enough that the hinges didn't squeal. A slice of darkness seeped in, thick and unnatural, as though it carried its own weight. The breathing, Chloe's voice cut through the heavy air, almost sharp now. Don't look. Not at them. Not once. Her figure in the mirror stood perfectly still. Only her eyes moved, fixed on me. Something crossed the threshold. Not footsteps. No weight on the floorboards. The air shifted. The flower on the dresser, trembling as though brushed by a faint wind. Another petal fell, curling, browned at the edges. The sound of it hitting the lace was deafening in the silence. The breathing was closer. It wasn't just sound anymore. I could feel it on my skin, hot, damp air grazing the back of my neck. My instincts screamed to turn. But Chloe's voice came again, low, steady. If you see them, you belong to them. The mirror's surface shimmered faintly. Behind Chloe now, the tall shapes loomed nearer, their edges blurring. They didn't walk. They didn't need to. The space in the hallway simply grew smaller between each blink. The breathing shifted sides. Now, at my left, something brushed the sleeve of my shirt. Not cold, not warm, just there. The urge to look was unbearable. The lock on the dresser drawer rattled faintly, as if responding to the thing in the room. Chloe's voice came again, almost urgent. Don't look. Don't breathe. The air thickened further. The pressure in the room was so heavy my chest ached. Just holding still. Every second stretched. Something moved just at the edge of my vision. A tall shape. Too close. Leaning in. And then from the hallway came a sound I hadn't heard before. Footsteps. Rushed. Human. Mary's voice called out, sharp and clear. Room 7. The breathing cut off. The air lightened. Just slightly. The darkness at the door pulled back like a wave receding. I turned too late to see anything. Only the hall, dimly lit, and Mary standing at the far end. Her eyes fixed on me, her face pale. You saw them, didn't you? She said quietly. Mary didn't move from the far end of the hallway. She just stood there, her voice carrying easily in the charged air. You saw them, didn't you? I didn't answer at first. My pulse was still hammering, my skin damp from the weight of the room. She stepped closer, her shoes soft against the creaking floorboards. Her eyes never left mine. No one stays in 7 if they've seen them. When she reached my door, she didn't step inside. Instead, she glanced into the room as though checking for something, or someone. Her gaze paused on the mirror. The reflection showed only me. Now no green turban, no figures, but Mary's face tightened as if she knew better. Chloe tried to warn you. She always does. But she can't keep them out forever. Her voice dropped, quiet enough that I had to lean toward her. 7 is their room. It's always been theirs. I asked her what she meant, but she only looked at the old lock on the door. It doesn't matter who turns it. They'll open it when they want to. Her eyes shifted again to the mirror. Her voice was even lower now. Don't look at them again. Don't follow them. And whatever you do, she paused. Don't. Let them breathe for you. Before I could ask more, she stepped back into the hall. Stay in your bed. Do not leave this room after midnight. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing until they faded. The room was quiet again, too quiet. The flower on the dresser had lost all its petals, and in the mirror, for just a moment before the glass went dull, Chloe's eyes were there, again looking at me, not with warning this time, but with something closer to pity. The house changed after dark. During the day, the Myrtles was only old, creaking, dusty, filled with quiet corners. At night, it felt aware. The floorboards didn't just settle anymore, they shifted, like something moved underneath them. I tried to take Mary's advice. I stayed in the bed. The lock on the door clicked faintly just after midnight, but I didn't move. I kept my eyes fixed on the ceiling. The air grew heavy again. Not like before. This was worse. Every breath dragged, like the room itself was pressing into my chest. A faint humming started. Not Chloe's. This was lower, less steady, like someone humming who couldn't remember the tune. The sound moved slowly across the room, from the door, past the foot of the bed, pausing at the dresser. I could feel them tall shapes, standing just beyond the reach of my vision. A weight pressed into the mattress at my feet. Slow, deliberate, as if something had leaned onto the bed. The humming stopped in its place. Breathing, right next to my ear. I clenched my jaw. Mary's voice echoed in my head. Don't look at them. The bed shifted again. A cold pressure trailed along the blanket. Near my legs, something was pulling at the covers. I couldn't stop myself. My eyes flicked toward the mirror on the dresser. At first, I thought it was just my reflection, but behind me, reflected faintly in the glass, 3 tall, black figures, no faces, no features, standing in a line along the side of the bed. The 4th stood at the foot, its head tilted in a way that made my stomach twist in the mirror. Chloe stood in the doorway. Her voice was urgent now, almost breaking through the stillness. Don't let them take it. The breathing deepened. A cold pressure touched the base of my throat. And then, from the hallway, the sound of footsteps. Mary's voice again, closer this time. Room 7. The air snapped, the weight lifting instantly. The bed was still, the mirror empty. Mary stood in the doorway, pale, her hand gripping the frame hard enough to whiten her knuckles. Her voice was low, tight. They're closer now. You won't last another night. Mary didn't step inside the room.